Let's get you fully ready for your next Hyrox race. In today's video, I'm gonna break down a full Hyrox race plan that's gonna get you dialed in, no BS, just straight to the point, what you need to know about Hyrox, how you can succeed at Hyrox, and ultimately go out there and either set a new personal record or crush your first race. Let's jump right into the video. Before we jump in, just do me a favor, just like you're gonna go out and smash that Hyrox, smash that like button, and then let's jump into things. The first thing you need to do to be fully prepared for your Hyrox is to set aside enough time to train for the actual race. Can't tell you how many people come to me and say, hey, there's a Hyrox in a couple weeks. Should I jump into it? And I say, sure, you can. It's gonna be completely a mental toughness exercise because you're not gonna have enough time to fully prepare for the Hyrox. My suggestion in a perfect world is you would train anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks for the race. But I know we don't always have that kind of time. So my suggestion is to carve out at least 8 to 10 weeks before your Hyrox race. This is why it's so important to plan ahead, to actually organize your calendar for the year and know which races you want to try or jump into. That way you give yourself enough time to plan and to prepare for the race itself. Personally, I always train 12 weeks before a race. So if I'm doing a race, I carve out 12 weeks prior. And in some cases, I may even build in a couple weeks just to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So if I need a week off, if I need a deload week, or if I go on vacation, instead of 12 weeks, I might give myself 14 to 16, not thinking I'm gonna train every single week for Hyrox, but ultimately just gives me a little bit of wiggle room in case something goes wrong. So make sure, tip number one, you plan ahead and you carve out enough time to actually prepare. Okay, so you have trained for the race. It is race week. You're coming into the final week before the race. Your race day prep starts during race week. Now, I'm gonna give you a proven system to be fueled up and ready to go for race day from a nutrition and hydration perspective. So your race day nutrition actually starts earlier in the week. So if you're racing on Saturday, which is 99.9% of people doing Hyrox, you're gonna wanna start getting your body fully fueled up on the Monday before your race. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly increase your carbohydrates throughout Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're gonna slowly bump up carbs. You may have been in a slight calorie deficit prepping for Hyrox. This often is the case for people in our VIP coaching program, which by the way, you can check out in the description below. Guys come in, they transform their bodies, and they go, hey, now I wanna go out and use my body, right? I got lean, I got permanently ripped, I wanna go into something more challenging. So they jump into Hyrox prep and they're burning a ton of calories getting ready for this Hyrox. They're running more, they're doing more circuit training, they're just doing a different variation of training. So it's hard sometimes to fuel all the way up to the calories being burned. So they might be in a calorie deficit, losing more weight as they get closer to Hyrox. Well, that last week, we wanna make sure that we're not in a calorie deficit, right? We don't wanna be burning more calories than we eat during the pre-race week because we're just not gonna be topped off fuel-wise. We wanna go into the race with our gas tank completely full. So the first thing we wanna do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is to increase carbohydrates around 10 to 20%. And then we need to eat up to at least maintenance level calories during those first 3 days of the week. This will ensure that our glycogen levels inside of our muscles and our bodies are completely topped off, which is what our body is going to tap into come race day. So we will still be training. You won't be training probably as intense the last week before the race, but we want to make sure our nutrition is properly dialed in. The other thing I would suggest is setting a water intake that's consistent. We want to get our bodies used to roughly the same amount of water and electrolytes during that early part of the week. My suggestion to keep it easy is about a gallon of water with a serving or two of sodium, potassium, and magnesium morning and then after your workout. That's a fail-proof way of setting up your early part of the week nutrition and hydration. Now, come Thursday, we're gonna really wanna bump up our carbs. So we don't need to have a high carb, high calorie day on Friday, the day before the race, because we don't want our stomach to be completely jacked up, feeling bloated, unsure of how we're gonna perform the next day because we ate too much food. I like to have a carb up day on Thursday. This allows me to completely top off my glycogen. And then Friday, I'm not gonna go burn through that glycogen because I'm probably not gonna be doing very much the Friday before a Saturday race. So I like to actually increase my carbohydrates. Whatever I was on Wednesday, I'll usually increase that by 50%. So If I ate 200 grams of carbs on Wednesday, maybe 250 grams, I'll increase that to 300 grams, 400 grams. Like I'll go pretty crazy, right? If I'm feeling it, if I need to top it off, but at least a 50% increase on Thursday. Then on Friday, I bring it back to whatever my levels were on Monday and Tuesday. That way I feel a little bit lighter on my feet. I'm not stuffing myself, but I keep my water intake very consistent, usually a gallon to a gallon and a half of water. That way I'm fully hydrated. I have electrolytes in my system because I'm taking electrolytes twice a day. And then I wake up Saturday and I'm ready to go. Now, Saturday morning, I'll have a meal that's gonna sit well in my stomach. I don't do anything crazy heavy. I keep protein and fats relatively low, and I get a decent amount of carbs. My go-to meal is a little bit of Greek yogurt with some granola, a banana, some honey, and a little bit of protein powder mixed in, but I keep my protein and fats pretty darn low the morning of the race. About an hour before my race, because my meal will take place about 3 to 4 hours before the race, and then about an hour to 45 minutes before the race, I'll have some quick acting carbs. So something like a gel pack with some sugar, or just another piece of fruit. And then I'm ready to go, staying hydrated, and I just don't wanna go into my race feeling bloated and like I have too much food in my stomach. So that is your pre-race nutrition and hydration strategy. So let's talk about our warm-up. Quick, super short and sweet, all right? Number one is we wanna start moving our body. So a light jog, getting on the bike, wanna get the blood flow going. And then the real fail-safe and easy way of warming up is to actually do the movement patterns that you're gonna be doing in the race. Most Hyrox races have a warm-up area where you can do some sled, push-pull, you can do some burpees, you can do everything you're gonna be doing in the actual race itself. So I like to get my body moving with a 5 to 10 minute jog or bike. Then I go to each station and I do some row, I do some ski, just for about a minute to 30 seconds, okay? Nothing crazy. I don't wanna go into my race feeling super tired. Just get a little sweat going, get the blood flow going, raise my adrenaline a little bit, and then I'm ready to go and I jump into the starting line, and it's just a matter of waiting and getting started. Tip number 4 is to make sure you know how many laps you're supposed to run in between each station. There's 8 stations at a Hyrox, and in between, depending on the venue, there's gonna be a certain number of laps you need to complete. So first rule is always count your own laps. You don't want to rely on the screen that you'll run by that should show you how many laps you need to complete before going into the next station. It's a good idea to track your own laps because sometimes that screen can malfunction. It's happened to me multiple times. And then you're looking up going, oh, I don't even see my name. Totally forgot what lap I'm on. So how do I do this? How do I count my laps by myself? Well, honestly, with race brain and going through the race and trying to keep your breathing under control and your focus and you're thinking about the next station, it can be really difficult. I have forgotten laps multiple times. So what I tend to do, and this may be a strategy you use, it may not be, as I start my race, I usually find people that are going about my pace, right? Sometimes I'm out in the front, right? Leading the pack of my heat. Sometimes I'm in the middle. But typically you're gonna get around people that are kind of on the same wavelength as you, right? Same pace, same speed, all that kind of stuff. So I pay attention to the people around me that were in my heat. If I see them going in, I know, yep, they were ahead of me, just by a little bit, and they go in, I know I finished my laps, right? I can kind of follow them in. It's just the natural way of a race, right? So if you blast past people, of course, don't be tracking where they are. Pick the people who are around your same pace that are on the same journey as you during this race. Now, of course, we hope the screens don't malfunction. Definitely use them if they're working well, just to make sure that you're double checking you're going in at the right time. And in your head, try to count your laps, but just know ahead of time how many laps you have to complete before going into the next station. Now, speaking of going into the next station, whenever you enter what's called the rock zone, there's gonna be some distance that you need to cover to get to the next station. You're not just gonna walk right into the station. You'll go into the zone, and then there's typically a decent amount of running that takes place to get to wherever you need to go. The key here is to run through the rock zone. I can't stress this enough. One of the things that will kill your time outside of missing a lap, which would be an instant penalty, or not doing your stations properly, which could result in a penalty or setting you back, is not running the rock zones. People enter the rock zone, they start walking, looking for their station, and all of a sudden minutes go by. Then when they're done with their station, they walk out to exit the rock zone. Run those areas, or at least jog them. I promise you, like, it will cut minutes off your time. And it's gonna keep you in the right frame of mind, because sometimes we get into the deeper parts of the race and everything in your body is screaming, just walk. You just take a break, you deserve it, right? You're doing great. And sometimes, yes, you need one, right? You need to stop for water, you got a cramp or something, you gotta fix it. But ultimately, if you can, jog and run through the rock zone. It will save you tons of time. Remember that, because you'll see people walking around you and you'll be like, I remember, just I said jog through the rock zone. Make sure you do it. It'll result in so much faster time. Now, the next thing we wanna be aware of is our pacing. I'm not gonna go into what your pacing should be, because that's gonna be very individual. But what I can tell you is it's a good idea to mentally start slow to finish fast. I've said this before in other Hyrox videos that I've done, and it's one of the biggest killers of a Hyrox race, and that is coming out way too hot. You know, you might get out with people who are just blazing and they're really fast runners, and you're trying to keep up and you just completely ignore the times that you had in your head that you wanted to run. Stick to your game plan. I would highly suggest writing down what you want your paces to be early on in the race, because you can easily use a watch like a Garmin or an Apple Watch to track your pace and make sure you're on point with what you had planned. The last thing you want to do is to go out way too hot, burn through all your energy storage, and then feel like absolute death and then lose a ton of time on the back half of the race. I'd rather see you go into the second half of the race with more fuel than expected, more energy than expected, so you can actually dominate the back half when most people are slowing down, easing off the gas, and really struggling to cross the finish line. You could thrive the second half and blast through the finish line in flying colors. So start slow to finish fast. Make sure you know your paces that you want to run. Plan those ahead of time. All right, so instead of telling you how to do every single station, there's a couple stations that I think are vital for you to understand the game plan and to help you avoid blowing up your race. The first one I would say is the sleds. Back-to-back sled stations, push, pull. Number one strategy is make sure you know your strategy, right? So there's different variations on how to push the sled. There's a sled push with your arms straight. There's a sled push where you kind of hug the poles and they rest up against your shoulder. I like that one the most. The best thing I can tell you is don't feel like you have to go unbroken, meaning you don't have to push the sled up, down without taking a break. I like to take purposeful breaks about halfway down each lane. Take a few breaths, so I'm measuring out my rest, right? I'm not sitting there going, oh, I just pushed myself to exhaustion. Let me rest for a while. Then a minute goes by, 2 minutes go by, and all of a sudden you're super slow. What I like to do is actually stop before I need the rest, right? Give myself a couple of breaths, recharge for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then keep going. This results in a much faster station. So the sleds, I would make sure you're taking purposeful rest before you actually need it. That way you come out of both those back-to-back stations feeling really good. The second one is your burpees, okay? The burpees aren't meant to be done as fast as possible. They're meant to be done as smooth as possible. So find a burpee pace, and you'd want to do this in your prep for the race when you're actually training for it. But find a pace that you can just maintain. Burpees suck, right? Nobody likes burpees, dude. They're always hard. So we don't want to destroy ourselves by trying to just go as fast as humanly possible. I promise you, you're going to hit a wall if you do that. What you want to do is, once again, find a smooth pace that allows you to do one after the next, after the next, after the next. You won't be the fastest burpee person on planet Earth, but I promise you, you'll get to that station faster than most, and you'll come out feeling absolutely incredible, because the race is not won at the stations. The race is won while running. The people who can jump from a station right back into a good running pace are the ones who are going to do really, really well. So do your burpees smooth, and I promise you that's going to make a huge difference. Now, the final station that you want to be prepped for mentally, at least, is the rower. The rower is really where the race begins. And there's a couple things we want to do with the rower. Number one, we want to kind of take the rower as a chance for some active recovery. I'm not telling you to go slow on the row, but you're not going to win the race on the ski erg first or the rower, which is station number 5. The rower is really where the race starts, because after the rower, you only have 3 more stations, all of which are relatively simple outside of the lunges. You have the farmer's carry, the lunge, and then you have the wall ball. The wall ball is gonna suck, you're gonna blast through it, and you're done with the race. The lunge is gonna suck, but you're gonna blast through it and then just have one more station. The farmer's carry is the easiest one. So you're only a few short stations away from being completely done with the race. What I like to do with the rower outside of just this active recovery mindset is to take some fuel, all right? So I might pack a little gel pack in my shorts, and when I get to the rower as I'm rowing, I might just quickly eat the gel pack to give me just that little extra boost as I go through the rest of the race. Something to consider, not something you absolutely have to do, but if you're someone who's prone to cramps or prone to kind of hitting a wall, you might want to do that. Speaking of fuel, when should you take water? My rule of thumb is every 2 or 3 stations. I don't like to go most times longer than 2 stations without, as I jog out of the rock zone, taking some water. And sometimes as I jog in, I'll take some water. It's not about necessarily drinking a ton of water. It's just trying to stay ahead of dehydration. I don't want to cramp, and I am prone to cramps personally, and you might be too, especially when we get to the lunges, which is the second to last station. My legs, my hamstrings, my calves have a tendency to lock up on me. So the way I avoid that is fueling at the row, taking water every 2 stations. Ideally, I'd probably be taking electrolytes about 30 to 40 minutes into the race. Most people are gonna take about an hour and a half to finish the Hyrox. My PR is an hour and 13 minutes, I believe. So around halfway through, I like to make sure I'm taking some sort of fuel. Usually that's near the row machine, but water is a vital one. So when you enter the rock zone, there'll be a water station. When you leave the rock zone, there'll be a water station. Jog by, grab it, sip on it as you're getting into your station, and then as you leave, take some water. I would do that every 2 to 3 stations. Stay ahead of your dehydration. I promise you it will pay off. So have a plan for the last station, which is the wall balls. And what I mean by a plan is you want to practice how many wall balls you want to do before taking a break. So me, I like to go in and I like to hammer 40 wall balls out of the gate. Okay, so 40 unbroken, boom. I have 60 left, which sounds like a big number, but I like to break that down into smaller chunks. So I'll typically do 40, then I'll do 20 unbroken, take a 10 to 12 second rest. Then I got 40 left, right? So I'll do another 20, then I'll do 10, then I'll do 5, and I'll basically just end it there, right? I'll just blast through the rest. Sometimes I'm feeling myself and I'm like, okay, I can do more. I can push through at the end. Adrenaline's going, people are cheering. You're feeling it, right? You're literally just a few wall balls away from crossing that finish line and being done. So sell out, right? But just don't make the mistake of going in without a plan of how many wall balls you want to complete. Because if you go in thinking, I'm just gonna hammer as many as I can, you're gonna tire out and you're gonna be sitting there resting, your shoulders are gonna be on fire, your squat's gonna start to suck, your lower back's gonna lock up. Just have a game plan. That's really the theme here of being prepared for the Hyrox. So here's the deal. If this video helped, there's another video I did for complete beginners. You can go check that one out. It's gotten a lot of feedback and I find that most people find it valuable. So go click that one, go watch that one next. And let me know in the comments, what Hyrox are you doing next? I'd love to hang out with you or at least give you a fist bump at one of the races. I typically do all the races on the East Coast. Sometimes I'm fortunate enough to travel and do some other ones outside of the East Coast. But if you're doing a Hyrox, let me know in the comments, what Hyrox are you doing next? Or do you want to do a Hyrox? Let me know, and hopefully we'll meet each other at a future race. Life moves fast, make it count. I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.